Hey everyone, Keith here. Before we get into each individual episode, I thought I'd take a minute and maybe explain what the heck this little project is all about. On that note, enjoy this introduction. Before we get started, I want to ask you to do me a quick favor. Just pause for a second. Think about your home. Not your physical house or apartment, but home. Like when someone asks you where you're from, that's the home that I'm talking about. A lot of people move around as they grow up, but there's typically one place they call home. Okay, do you have home in mind? Now I want you to think about what comes to mind as you think about home. For example, when you've been away, what do you look forward to doing when you go back? If you're bringing a good friend or a significant other home for the first time, what are the things you want to make sure they see, do, try, or experience? I'm not talking about a top 5 list of tourist attractions. Most of us don't do those things when we go home anyway. I'm talking about the things that give you a feeling like you're back where you belong. Some people talk about it like being in an environment where you can be your authentic self. Okay, do you have home in mind? Can you think about those things you miss about home and can't wait to do when you're back? Think about why those things are special to you. Okay, park that for a second. I'll come back to it in a few minutes. Before we go any further, I want to share 3 quick background points. First, I've been meaning to take some time off work for a while. Back in 2013, I was thinking about taking time off work to think about the next chapter of my career and what I wanted to do. But as luck would have it, I got a new role that I was excited about and never took that time away. Fast forward 10 years, the role has been better than I ever imagined, but I've also now been at my company for 27 years. So in the middle of 2022, I decided to go back and ask for that time away, and in January 2024, I'm starting a 6-month sabbatical. Second, I'm a photographer that literally takes tens of thousands of photos every year as I travel around the world. Since the mid-2000s, I've run a website, kbevphoto.com, and tried to document the world as I see it, across a wide range of things to get me outside of my bubble. My favorite subject is hip-hop culture, all 4 elements, but especially dance and MCs. But I like to do live events of all kinds. That includes politics and rallies, like being there on both of Obama's election nights, to sideshow performances and body suspension events, to festivals, to concerts. And during COVID, I started portrait work with models, which opened up a whole new genre of photography for me. Third, I'm fascinated by people's stories. What makes them who they are? So it makes sense that my favorite podcasts have been things like This American Life, The Moth, Ear Hustle. Heck, the podcast I host for work, Beyond the Bio, also focuses heavily on people's stories. I just enjoy getting to know more about people than what you get by making small talk with them. So when my sabbatical was formally approved, my wife told me one thing.
You can't play video games all day.
So that got me thinking of a project idea, and that brings us to this little project. So in coming up with a project, it took a lot of twists and turns as I talked with people about what to do. I thought about social justice issues I'm passionate about. I thought about doing something with the slave trade or the African diaspora, which was my minor in college. I also considered doing a global portrait project that focused on specific groups of people, like people at their place of business, or like the project Taryn Simon did in her book, The Innocents. The problem was, I wanted to go do a pretty diverse range of things and visit a diverse range of places, and I couldn't figure out a project that would connect them all. So I started talking with a bunch of people and got a few bits of advice that stuck with me along the way. My wife, Natasha, shared her point of view.
Photos are good, but a podcast would be better.
And I'm not sure that's a critique of my photo skills or a like of my podcast, but I'll take it for what it was. Over a 2-hour dinner kicking around ideas early in my process, my friend Coleman set a really high bar that resonated with me.
Whatever you do, you should be able to answer the question, why does the world need this?
Several months later, I had dinner with my friend Atul here in Chicago, and he told me,
the thing that I think makes you really special is you're really able to connect with people regardless of backgrounds and origins. Getting people outside their bubble is really hard to do, and if you can bring that element to the project, I think that'd be a really good thing.
After literally dozens of other conversations, I zeroed in on people talking about home. Again, not in a top 5 kind of way, but something more interesting. Then I had breakfast with Lily B, and I shared with her that I wanted people to talk about home, and she pushed me further. She told me that it's not about the things they think makes home special. It's the story about how those things got to be special in the first place. That'll be really fun, and that's what we're going to try and focus on. Okay, so let me start to wrap this up and share what the heck we're doing here. So during a big part of 2024, I'll be traveling to different parts of the world for 4 to 6 weeks at a time. Rather than doing the touristy things, which I'm absolutely going to do, I also want to experience what home is for the people I've met along the way. Remember when I asked you to think about home, your real home? Did you think about the things you miss and make you excited to be going back? Can you pinpoint why and when those things became special for you in the first place? For each country I'm visiting, I'm going to talk with friends from those places before I visit. I want to know what's special about home for them, and I'd like to explore how those things got to be special in the first place. Let me illustrate it with a silly little example of my own. When my son comes home from school, we always hit Lawrence's Fishery. It's just a ritual that we have and enjoy together. We have a few spots, that's one of them. Then one day I realized that my dad and I had the same type of ritual when I was their age. When I visited him in Virginia, we always went to Fuddruckers, and I'd load up a giant burger. I hadn't connected the two things, but I realized that the same type of rituals I had with my dad were the same ones I was building with my sons. It became our thing and would bring us closer together. We'd get a chance to talk while we waited for our food or on the drive to grab some takeout, but it was time when we knew he was back and we'd enjoy that time together whenever we could. It also connects us when we're apart because I'm absolutely the dad that will send them photos of what they're missing if I go to those spots while they're away. When I've had some of these conversations with people, they talk about a lot of things. It might be going to a park when they're home. The park is nice, but it's about reliving the memories of their childhood in that park that make it special. It may be a meal that they look forward to because it reminds them of a family member or a part of their culture that they really miss when they're away from home. Plans change, but here's what I'm going to try and do. For every country that I visit, I'm going to talk with a friend in advance of that trip, and you'll get a sense of who they are and how we know each other, but we'll hear what they think about when they think of home and explore why it's special. We've got about 15 to 20 countries in the plan, but you'll hear from some people like
Santiago from Peru,
Moon from Vietnam,
Kwame
and Adam
from Ghana,
Kirby from Korea.
Then I'm going to visit and try and experience some of the things they talk about for myself. Sure, I'll do some of that touristy stuff, but I'll also try and experience the special that they describe. And afterwards, I hope to have a follow-up conversation with them and share my experience. Of course, I'll be taking photos throughout the trip, and I'll be posting galleries on KBev Photo as I go. My plan is to have a conversation about some of my favorite photos with a friend of mine and share the stories behind the photos on smaller episodes. There'll also be a website, myhomeisspecial.com, that will keep everything organized. As I create and release content, both podcasts and photo galleries, I'll share there. I'll also share some behind the scenes along the way at KBev Photo on Instagram. It'll just be in my stories and I'll add a few highlights as we go. Who knows where it'll go from there, but if you're still with me, I appreciate you. Tap follow for the podcast, go follow KBev Photo on Instagram, and bookmark the website. Feedback is always welcome, and if you DM me with some, I'll be sure to hit you back. Let's enjoy this journey together. Peace. Okay, now we got the formal stuff out of the way so we can get started with the individual episodes. The first stop on our trip will be a couple weeks in South America. We've got a couple of episodes planned. Stay tuned, they'll be out soon.